Good afternoon. Today is the 26th of March, and I want to talk today about another of my favourite television series from the 1970s, Return of the Saint. Do, 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 do. So the original Saint character was created by the author Leslie Charteris in 1928, and he featured in a series of novels right the way through, I think, to the 1980s. First of which was called Meet the Tiger. Some of them were ghostwritten by Leslie Charteris, but he was a very popular character, and he turned up on all sorts of media, comic books, films, television, and of course the most famous series before Return of the Saint was with Roger Moore, which ran from 1962 to 1969. In 1977, they decided to start work on another Saint series, using much of the original crew who'd worked on the first one. It was another ITC production. In fact, it's probably the last notable ITC television production. Robert S. Baker was the producer. Chap called Malcolm Christopher was production supervisor. He was helped by a chap called Johnny Goodman, who'd worked on lots of ITC series. They even got back people like Gina Marotta, who was one of the assistant directors. Loads of ITC people worked on Return of the Saint, but they had considerable help in the fact that the budget was a lot higher this time, and so they had genuine location filming in France and in Italy, and I think a little bit in Spain too. So it looks very expensive, and was a very popular series when it was broadcast from 1978 to 1979. So rather than starring Roger Moore, who by the mid-70s was very firmly in the public imagination as James Bond, Return of the Saint starred Ian Ogilvy, who physically resembled Roger Moore a little bit, although his build is much slimmer than Roger Moore. So he's a bit of a less powerful, kind of imposing figure, and I think he's great. I think Return of the Saint is quite a good series. It's very different from something like Professionals. It's more a little bit like the New Avengers. Possibly slightly old-fashioned in the 70s. You know, things like The Sweeney was very popular, and Return of the Saint does have one or two sort of gritty moments, but generally it was sort of dumbed down to have a PG rating in places like America, so it's not the most realistic series, I'd say. One of the great things about Return of the Saint is the main car used. In 1961, Johnny Goodman, who was one of the people working on the Saint in pre-production, had tried to get the new Jaguar E-Type featured in the series, and Jaguar had pretty much just turned him down immediately, saying, my good man, we can sell all the cars we need, we don't need the publicity. So they went to Volvo, who said, we'll give you a car tomorrow, we'll give you a second car for Roger Moore to drive around in. We'd love to have our car in a series. Jaguar, at that time owned by British Leyland, or them again, they were not keen to let this opportunity pass them by, and so they supplied a white XJS V12 for Ian Ogilvy to use in the series, and it looks really wonderful, actually. From research people have done about Return of the Saint, there looked to be 3 different cars that were used. One of them was a prototype. It was the 4th manual car ever built on the XJS production line. That was registered PWK 530R. It was actually built in August 1975, but it carries a 1976 plate on it. Obviously, in this series, they use ST1. They got special dispensation for using that fake plate. But PWK 530R is the main car used. There are some differences between the 3. Just read them from this helpful page here. That had a tan interior, had a factory steel sunroof, a manual gearbox, as I've said. The B post was silver and bullet type mirrors. It was used in 13 episodes, which is by far the most common car that you'll see Ian Ogilvy driving in the series. There is a second car. Now this one was used in episodes filmed in Italy. We think it was probably hired from a dealer. This had a black interior, not a tan one. A Jaguar Leaper ornament fitted on the rear of the bonnet, which wasn't actually a factory installation. It was an automatic, not a manual. Black B pillars, the same type of mirrors, and supercover warranty stickers. That's used in 6 episodes, mainly the ones used in Italy. There's also the other car that was also sourced from a dealer, we think in France, for the episodes filmed in France, that had a beige interior and automatic transmission, black B pillars. Mirrors were different on that one. And so there are very minor differences between them, but for all intents and purposes, they do represent the same car on screen. Apparently, Ian Ogilvy didn't particularly like driving the XJS because the air conditioning leaked onto his feet as he turned sharply in corners. That's British Airways build quality for you. Having backup cars obviously helped because, they weren't most reliable things at the time. So there were a few other cars used in Return of the Saint, both by him and other characters. When they're filming in Italy, there are a couple of Alfa Romeo, what I call the 105 series coupes, normally known as the Giulia coupes. And there's a couple that get in accidents, and one's in a chase sequence with the Saint. And actually, when he's in Florence in a episode called Appointment in Florence, I don't know why this is particularly, but he hires another car, actually 2 different cars. So it's supposed to be one car. It's a 1975 Fiat 131 Mirror Fury. But it actually turns into the Series 2, the 78 model Super Mirror Fury at particular times. It's a black one. I'm not going to get number plates. I'm not that keen on Italian plates. They're very difficult to read as far as I'm concerned. Yes, so there's other things he uses as well, but obviously for the majority of the time you'll see him in his Jaguar. British Leyland did a bit of product placement as well for other vehicles that you see. So there's a couple of Triumph TR7s. There's a blue one that's used in 2 episodes, which is called Collision Course Parts 1 and 2. There's a yellow one which is used by, I think it's Diane Keene's character in an episode of The Debt Collectors. And there's a blue one used in the south of France in an episode called The Debt Collectors. Also Kate O'Mara, who's in one of the episodes, drives a green Allegro, which is pretty hilarious. One of the best episodes is The Debt Collectors, actually, as I mentioned just before. And there's a sequence in there that's a chase between a 1977 Ford Cortina Mark IV 2 GL and the XJS. As far as I know, that Cortina is not actually a Ford press car. It's got a London plate on it, so it probably wasn't anything to do with Ford themselves. So I just happened to hire one from one of the companies for filming. Obviously, British Leyland were very keen to look after their own products. A couple of other interesting cars, Return of the Saint, are a Citroen CX Safari Estate, which was owned by the director of the episode The Arrangement, Peter Medak, but also turns up in The Professionals, an episode he directed called The Rack. And there is a 1978 Lotus, I think it's a Lotus Eclat, as far as I know, that's used by one of the characters in the same episode, one of the ladies, which is a bright red one. That's most of the cars, I think, that are interesting in Return of the Saint that I can think of for now. So I hope you found that video interesting. Please don't forget to comment, forget to leave a like, and to subscribe to the channel. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. And if you wish me to source a car for you, it doesn't have to be a Jaguar, it could be anything. then please use the contact page on my website to be in touch. I look forward to hearing from you if that's something you'd like me to do. And thank you very much indeed again for watching.